Welcome to our First Star Logistics Studios. You're listening to In the Trenches with Dave Lapham. Our special guest, UC head basketball coach Wes Miller, North Carolina bred, born in Greensboro, played at University of North Carolina, won a national championship under Roy Williams, very significant factor in his life, his relationship with Roy Williams. 10 years head basketball coach at UNC Greensboro, 5 straight 20-plus win seasons, 3 years in a row, 25 wins or more. You're going to really like his personality. I think he's going to be a big success at University of Cincinnati. They're going to play tough, hard-nosed defense, rebound the basketball, and win a lot of games. You're going to like Coach Wes Miller. Thanks for joining us once again at the beautiful First Star Logistics Studios. You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, special guest right now, head basketball coach, University of Cincinnati, Wes Miller. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm great, Dave. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, I know UC is very happy to have you as their head basketball coach. I know you're in the throes of the recruiting process right now. That's obviously a big part of the job. How's recruiting going so far?
It's going well. It's been really nice, Dave, that the NCAA is loosened some of those COVID restrictions that we had, and we're kind of back to a normal calendar for the first time in 15 months or so. So it's been really nice to kind of get back to normal. I think everybody probably feels that in all aspects of their life. But it's certainly nice in recruiting. We're going to be able to go out and recruit in person, not this weekend, but the next for the first time since COVID happened. So I'm looking forward to evaluating again and evaluate in person, not just through a computer screen, which is kind of how it's felt here for a while.
Yeah, there's nothing like shaking somebody's hand and looking in their eye. And I mean, that part of it, that's hard to replace, isn't it?
That's right. I mean, there's just things you can't learn through a computer, when you're watching even just watching them play, when you're watching their facial expressions or their reactions throughout the course of player, how do they interact with coaches and teammates? That stuff really matters. We're trying to evaluate those things, and you can't tell that when you watch a game on a computer. And then, as you mentioned, the relationship thing is what this whole basketball team is all about, right? Any great team, it's about relationships and interpersonal relationships. And so being able to meet with families, with young people, and spend time getting to know them, it's just not as powerful as it is over Zoom. So that's been really important, getting back to that.
Speak to your coaching staff that you assembled a little bit. DeMar Johnson added to your staff. He was the Conference USA Player of the Year, 6th pick of the draft with the Atlanta Hawks, and obviously a background at University of Cincinnati. And talk about some of the decisions that you made, I guess, taking kudos to the history of the University of Cincinnati and bring back some of the guys that were part of that history.
Yeah, this program, I mean, the history and tradition, it's unique. I mean, this is one of the greatest programs in the history of our game. The first thing, when I took this job, I wanted everybody to know is I want to embrace that. It's the reason that this was so attractive to me. I think it's the reason why we're going to be able to attract great young players because of what's happened here before us. And then there's so much interest and there's such a passionate fan base and passionate alumni. That's the kind of stuff that makes this really special. It makes it really different. So we want to try to embrace that. We want our former players to come back and be a part of our program. And it's nice that we were able to, add a couple former players to our staff. I think that action should speak pretty loudly about, where we stand and how we feel. You mentioned DeMar Johnson. And to me, it's great when you can have former players as a part of the staff, but they have to be qualified, right? And they have to bring something and have value in their role. And DeMar fits that. He's our director of player development, who understands better what it's going to take for young people to get to the highest level and reach their goals and dreams than Dermar. As you mentioned, he had a great college career. He was on one of the great teams here at Cincinnati in the year he was on campus. He had a great NBA career and a great story. He had a wild accident, a car accident that almost ended his career. In fact, a lot of people thought his career was over, and he came back from that. So, there's a lot of things our guys can learn from DeMar, but beyond that, he spent a lot of his time since his career ended, getting his degree here. He worked for Coach Cronin as a graduate assistant or undergraduate manager, I should say, but a kind of more of a graduate assistant role. He's worked with the NBA PA to try to get into coaching and doing some of their programs. So he's prepared for this kind of opportunity, and I felt that he was really qualified as well. And then we brought Kyle Washington. Yep. It was a good player here a handful of years back as a graduate assistant. So we got 2 former players on our staff, and I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, that's great. Your playing career, you started off at James Madison, and then you go to University of North Carolina with a guy named Roy Williams. Is Roy Williams, and you won a national championship to boot, is Roy Williams about as influential as anybody in your life, basketball or not?
He is. I mean, I had great parents. I had great parents, and so I'm really fortunate to say that. And they've probably been the most influential people in my life. I wouldn't be here without them, and they gave me so many great opportunities. But after that, like the foundation of who I am as a coach and the way that I view the game, the things that I value in the game, that and many more things are derived from the time that I spent with Coach and the things that I've learned from Coach. And when I went to North Carolina to play, the defining part of that decision to go to school there was because I wanted to get into coaching. I knew there was a chance I'd never play, that it might not end up being the best decision from a playing standpoint, but it was the best long-term decision because Coach Williams promised me he'd help me get into coaching and that he'd do everything he could to help me develop as a coach. And he's fulfilled that and much more. Since the time I was in school there, he's been just an incredible mentor and figure in my life.
What's the biggest attribute, characteristic, or trait that Coach Roy Williams has that you want to emulate, that you want to incorporate into who Wes Miller is as a coach or even a person?
How much time do you have? I think I have such respect for Coach on a number of levels, but, just in a very fundamental way, he's as successful. I mean, he's one of the most successful people in the history of coaching, regardless of sport or level, right? I mean, if you read down the accolades, it takes you back. But he's that successful, one of the most successful people in his profession all time. But he does it the right way. He has like a really strong, like, moral fiber. He treats people the right way. Like he really treats the people in his life and the people around him with respect. And he cares deeply for the people around him. And I think the combination of those 3 things is really unique in this level of coaching, where the stakes are so high. So he wins at the highest level. He cares deeply for the people around him, and he stays strong to who he is and his values. And, I could talk a lot of things, but those dynamics are the things that, I think about when I'm making tough decisions or I'm, having a little self-reflection on what I'm about and the kind of coach and person that I want to be. So he's been an incredible example and mentor for me. I will say this, though. I get the head coaching job at 28 years old, and I didn't know a whole lot. So you try to, like you said, you try to emulate the people you've been around and the people you respect. And I did learn this, that I got to be Wes Miller. I'm not going to be any good at being Roy Williams. Nobody can be him, and trying to be him is not going to work for me. So it's like those, what you try to do is you take the values the things that he does well, and you try to incorporate that into who you are within your own personality and your own self. And that's something I've tried to do as I've spent more and more time around him, and he's kind of coached me up even as I got into coaching.
Your experience at North Carolina prompted you to write the book, The Road to Blue Heaven. What was your inspiration there, Coach?
Interesting story. There's a guy on the staff at North Carolina while I was playing there named Jared Hass. He was an assistant coach. Was a great player at Kansas for Coach Williams in the 90s. And he's actually now the head coach at Stanford and one of my best friends in coaching. But we were really close when I was playing, and he was an assistant. And he'd written a book called Floor Burns that was a diary of his senior year at Kansas. And so I was aware of that. I think he'd given me the book to read as kind of a joke, and I read it and was impressed. And I just copied Jared. In full disclosure, I wish it was an original idea, but I just copied it, and it was a neat thing to do. It was a great project, and something I'll always be able to look back on. But like we all do in coaching, everybody goes, well, you learned, you ran a great play or you did some great defense. Where'd you come up with that? We probably stole it from somebody else. That was an idea that I stole from Jared Hass, so I have to give him credit there. So
upon graduation, you played well, obviously, at North Carolina. You play a season for the London Capitals of the British Basketball League. What did that experience teach you? What did you gain from that you can apply to your coaching career today?
Well, I learned really quickly that I'm not going to be a great professional basketball player. No, I love to play. I'm passionate about the game of basketball. I fell in love with the game playing the game. I still hate that I can't play anymore. I can't get out there and do it. But, I always dreamed about playing professional basketball. And so I wanted to keep playing after college. I did have some relative success during my career at Carolina, and so it felt realistic. And I went and played in England, and I found out really quickly that the term professional is a loose term in basketball. Like there's different levels. It wasn't anything like the NBA. It was more like semi-pro. But it was great. It was great to live in another country and have that kind of an experience. It helped me grow up a lot. It also helped drive me to get into coaching because I got my fix to say that I kept playing after college. But as I was over there, I was ready to do something meaningful and purposeful in my life, and I didn't feel like I had a long career as a player. So it drove me right back into coaching right away. So I was an assistant coach, not even a year after finishing at Carolina at University. And part of the reason I got right into it quickly is because of that experience playing in England.
So you get into coaching. You're a head coach at UNC Greensboro, 10 years. You're a two-time Coach of the Year, and 2 times three times regular season champ, 2-time tournament champ, Southern Conference tournament champ, go to the NCAAs, all of that. What is easier, Coach, or which is more challenging, I should say, turning a program around or sustaining that level of success? There's no seat at the top of the ladder of success. Sustaining that level of success to the way you did with 5 straight seasons of 20 wins or more, 3 straight of 25 wins or more. When you start putting those together, is that tougher to do than turning the program around, or how does that work?
Well, I'm gonna answer your question, but I'm gonna twist your words around a little bit.
Okay.
I think having one good year is not nearly as difficult as sustaining success or building something that can sustain itself. And so I kind of think both questions, it's the same answer.
Right.
Building a program at Greensboro, and when we came to Greensboro, it didn't matter what metric you looked at. We were at the bottom of Division I basketball. I mean, it didn't matter. RPI, we didn't have a net in those days. KenPom, we were in the bottom 300s when you rank 1 to 350 in college basketball. And to get the program to a point that we could be competitive and compete at the top of our conference to go to an NCAA tournament or an NIT, a national tournament every single year, that was incredibly hard. And so I kind of lump them both together. We won, I believe 17 games 6 years ago or so. And that was the first time that I felt we built something, and we went to the postseason for the first time. We actually lost in the second round of the CIT or CBI, one of those events,
right,
against Ohio. And I might not have all this perfectly right. You guys do some fact checking, but that was the first time that UNC Greensboro had ever won a game in the postseason. And it was the first time that I felt like we broke through. Now, we didn't have a winning record, but you kind of felt like we had turned it to build something where there was pride. There was an identity to what we were doing and how we were approaching it every day. And from that year on, we never looked back. I think we won 25 games the next year, won our regular season, lost at the buzzer in our conference tournament finals to go to the NCAA tournament, but played in the NIT. And the following year, we won 27 games and won the regular season and the conference tournament. The following year, you win 29 games, and we finished second in the regular season and lost in the conference tournament final to a top 25 team in the country in Wofford that year. And, and so like we got to a point that we were winning 20 games every year, competing to win our league in the regular season and the conference tournament, and playing in either the NIT or the NCAA every year. And I don't know if one year, it was just the idea of building something that could sustain itself, I think is really, really difficult, but that's what we're all, trying to do. And I'm really proud of where we started at Greensboro. And when I left there, where the program was. And I thought, I really say this all the time, like I was not looking to leave Greensboro. I mean, I thought there was still a lot of room to grow. I loved the kids I was coaching. I loved the people that I was working for. I was only going to leave for something that I thought was truly special. And Cincinnati felt like that once in a lifetime opportunity that was truly special. But I am really proud of what we did over the course of our time at UNCG.
You were born in Greensboro, correct? I mean, it went full circle. You were born in Greensboro, and then you come back to UNC Greensboro and take them on the run that you've taken them on. You must be, I mean, do you have to pay for a meal or anything in Greensboro? I mean, you must be the man in Greensboro.
Greensboro and Charlotte are home. So I was born and raised in Greensboro and spent a part. My mom moved to Charlotte when I was 10 years old. My dad stayed in Greensboro, so I always, really connected with both of those communities. And yeah, it was really neat to coach somewhere you were born and raised. We were so bad in those first 3 years at UNCG. I think the only reason they didn't run me out of town was because I was, one of their own type of thing. So, but not an unbelievable community and somewhere that'll always be really special to me. And the people there have always treated me right, for sure.
Was there a recruit that you captured that kind of signified, boy, we're turning things around? Or was it just that you got the right fit of players to fit the system that you wanted to employ, and just over time you accumulated enough? Or was there a guy that was like, boy, now we're on the map right now? Was there anybody like that?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that kind of stuff for sure. I think, those first couple of years we screwed it up every way you could screw it up. I don't think we really had an identity. We didn't have a value system that we tried to operate on.
Right.
And so whether it was any decision we were making, and any decision I was making as head coach, we didn't have a purpose for what we were doing other than let's just try to get a bunch of good players and go win games. And, that didn't even feel right, to be honest, but you live and you learn. I think at some point we just kind of decided, hey, this is what we're about. This is what we think our program's going to be about. This is what I really value as a person, and certainly as a coach. And we're going to make decisions based on that. And a lot of things happen. It didn't happen overnight, but over time you felt like things were building that were real. There's a young man named Deontay Baldwin who was from Greensboro. He was a 6-foot point guard, and he's very prideful, so he wouldn't like me saying anything negative about him. But he was always really competitive. He had a big chip on his shoulder. But he wasn't the best point guard in North Carolina. He was, I think we were one of 2 Division I scholarship offers he had, so he wasn't a huge recruit.
Right.
But his class, he came in with five guys in his class. It was a really talented recruiting class. And we were going through some stuff in those first couple of years, and almost all of them transferred out. And Deontay chose to stick it out and stay. And he didn't have a lot of reason to believe at that time, but he chose to kind of believe in what we were doing. He stuck it out with a handful of other guys that deserve credit. But he was the first real leader in our program, and he was from the community. So like one thing I've talked about here at Cincinnati is when you watch Jeremiah play, he's playing for his community. He's playing for something a little bit more meaningful. Right. Deontay Baldwin was like that in Greensboro, and he kind of just refused to leave Greensboro and not be successful. And his senior year is the year that we won 25 games and, won our regular season and made it to the NIT. And, I think with him and some other guys that deserve a lot of credit, I don't think I would be sitting here as the head coach at Cincinnati if it wasn't for him and a bunch of guys that believed in us. But he's one that really sticks out and will always stick out to me.
When you decided to pursue the Cincinnati job and interview, did you confer with Coach Roy Williams? Was he somebody that you talked to a little bit, or were there people you talked to about the opportunity at UC, or how did that evolve for you? Hi, Dave Lapham here. Have you heard about In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics? Catch new episodes from the world of sports and broadcasting. Search for In the Trenches with Dave Lapham on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast.
I'll talk to Coach. Absolutely. I haven't made a major life decision since I left college and haven't run it by, Coach Williams. He's been that kind of figure in my life. I'd certainly talked to my parents.
Right.
And that's probably about it. I kept it pretty quiet. But the people that really, and then a couple of really close friends, the people that really mattered to me are the people that I was talking to, but it was a really small circle.
What are your non-negotiables, Coach, when you're putting a team together and you're recruiting players, and these are the characteristics and traits that I'm looking for, and this is a non-negotiable. What might some of those things be?
Gotta love basketball. Like I have a crazy passion for it. So I want to be around guys that love it like that. I think that's something we can kind of all bond on, is our love for the game. And you think everybody that plays it at this level loves it. It's just not necessarily, or coaches it loves it. It's just not the case. And I want a bunch of people around me that love it, coaches, players alike, because I do. And kind of found that you're not going to like me very much if you don't love basketball. So that's a non-negotiable. I think we're looking for really competitive, edgy players. Like, and now we want high character guys, no doubt about that. Like we want guys that have a strong value system and that type of thing. But when they get in between the lines, we want to see that they are as competitive as all get out, that they play with a fire and an edge, with a little grit and toughness. I mean, we're looking for that kind of edge and that kind of will to compete. The third thing I'd say is we want guys that are obsessed with development, that like really understand the idea that they want to be great, but understand the idea that it's going to take a certain type of approach every single day, that there's a process, and that they actually want that and want to be held accountable every day to be in. I mean, young people, just like we're not perfect where we are in life as adults, young people are imperfect, and we certainly understand that, but we want to see that those kind of foundational values are in place and that they'll thrive when they get in this type of an environment where we really value those things and hold them accountable to those things every day. And then finally, listen, we're coaching young people. I mean, there's a responsibility we have as coaches, as leaders of college students, that this has to be about more than just basketball and about more than just winning and losing games. We got to help young people grow on a day-to-day basis, as students, as people, as problem solvers. We got to help teach them how to mature in their life and their relationships. Like this idea of making sure student athletes get an education, while they're under our watch, this idea of like one day at a time growth on and off the floor. We want to make sure there's some value in that, because we really value that. It can't just be about trying to win a basketball game. And so those are some of the non-negotiables or prerequisites that we make people aware of when we recruit them, and hope they understand that's what they're walking into.
Yeah, the first one you talked about, love of the game. It's real interesting. I mean, I was fortunate to play college football, and I talked to teammates that were really good players and say, "How about that? How about that game on Saturday night? I didn't watch that. I don't watch football." I said, "You don't watch football? I don't really like football that much. I'm just really good at it." I'm like, "Really? You don't even really like?" And then in the NFL, it was even more so. I mean, these really good players would be like, "Man, how about that Sunday night game, that Monday night game? I don't watch football, really." And to me, if you don't have that burning desire like you're talking about, that's what makes good players great, great players Hall of Famers. And these guys had unbelievable talent levels, but never really got to where, they could have been if they had just that component, that missing ingredient of the love of the game. I think that's huge. I couldn't agree with you more. And then, you talk about the tough-minded aspect of it. That's UC basketball, isn't it? I mean, defense, rebounding, all the blue collar type things. Is that what style of game can fans look forward to with you as the head coach, sir?
Yeah, I think you hit on it a little bit, and again, I think fit matters so much in recruiting. Making sure people fit us and what we're about.
Yep.
We preach that to every prospect we're recruiting, but it mattered to me, and when I was thinking about if I'd ever leave where I was, I wanted to make sure somewhere that I really aligned with that university and that program and those fundamental values. And when I grew up watching UC basketball, that's what came through the television to me, was tough-minded teams with a chip on their shoulder that were competing with everybody in college basketball. I mean, I really relate to that. That type of mindset is kind of how I would like to think that that's how I am was a player and as a coach. And I think that's how we coached the last 10 years. We're gonna let guys play on offense with freedom. And we're gonna let them develop and grow and play through mistakes. We're gonna play with some pace. Let them get up and down the floor. I hope I'm not in a position where I got to call a play every time down the floor. I want guys to play free and go use their abilities and talents and get out and learn and grow. Defensively, I'm a little more difficult. We're gonna be tough. We're gonna be physical. We're gonna really, really demand a certain type of mentality and approach for the things that win and lose basketball games on that end of the floor. Those things that win extra possessions, whether it's deflections or loose balls or plays on the ball around the rim or rebounding, or offensive rebounds. There's all these little aspects of a basketball game that can get you one extra possession. Those are the areas where we'll be super demanding and try to build our identity around those things. I think the one way I think about defense is we want to guard you in a way that doesn't allow you to play the way you practice every day. We want to make it difficult. We're going to be aggressive. Generally, we're going to play a lot of man-to-man. I think everything will be built around our man-to-man defense in the half court.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll do some things in the full court defensively, whether that's man or zone, to just make things difficult, be pest-like, and try to make sure teams know they can't just come in and play the way they practice every day.
Yeah, I've had a limited experience, high school basketball. I had some small school basketball offers coach, but did play high school hoops. And I tell you, the game is hard when you can't make shots, man.
Yeah.
And if you're not playing defense and you can't make shots, I mean, now you're not playing defense, so you're taking the ball from out of bounds and you have to go down the court and run half court offense, and you're not making any shots. I mean, if you're having trouble shooting, if you're playing defense and then you're rebounding the basket, at least you have a chance to get in transition and do some things. I mean, it's that simple, isn't it? As one of my great friends in coaching has said to me over the years, like, basketball is a really simple game played and coached by very complicated people. It is simple. I mean, and some of the wins that I'm the most proud of are nights that we've shot 25% or 26% from the floor and we still won because we guarded your tail on the other end and we rebounded the heck out of it, and we didn't turn it over. And listen, I mean, I don't want to scare people, Bearcat fans. I hope we scored at a high level, and we're going to work really hard to get guys that can do that and let them go play and develop. But there's going to be nights the ball doesn't go in, and if you can always rely on what you're doing on the other end,
then you make sure you're not turning it over at a high rate. You're going to have a chance to play every night and win every night.
When you're recruiting players like you're in the process of doing now, you bring them to a beautiful arena, great facilities. I mean, pretty good starting point for you, isn't it?
I'll tell you what, I'm not used to that. It's it's been, at UNCG, we had some great things. I'm not complaining at all that we had some great support and great resources.
Right.
But nobody ever walked into our offices or walked on campus and told us they dreamed their whole life about playing at UNCG. Cincinnati, like you said, everybody grew up watching all this great basketball. These people in this area are so passionate. I can't tell you how many prospects we talked to said, I grew up a UC fan. I grew up a Bearcat fan. And I always dreamed about being in that program. That's unique and different for me. And like you said, I walked into the fifth third on my interview, and I got goosebumps, and I just kind of said, this is it. Like and I've seen it on TV, and I know the support's there every night. I know we fill up that arena every night. And to think about coaching somewhere in a building like that, I don't really have words. I got goosebumps. I felt it, as I would say. And I think prospects are going to feel that too. And I have already kind of found that as we recruited this spring. Kids feel that when they walk in there. And that's something that's, again, deeply unique to Cincinnati basketball.
Coach Williams mentioned that he's going to join the UCATS club. Is he a UCATS club yet, Coach? Do you know?
I'll have to go check with Brad Okel and see if he sent his check in. But I'll tell you this, he's never said anything to me that he hasn't followed through with. He's got that kind of character. So I believe he will, and I know he'll be up here at games. He doesn't have anything else to do than play golf right now. I'm just kidding. He does a lot of great stuff. But since he's not coaching, I know he'll make some time and come up here and watch practice and give me some counsel and certainly come attend games.
Yeah, it's not bad to have somebody like that as a voice to say, son. And you should think about University of Cincinnati and Wes Miller. I know Wes Miller personally. I know what he's all about. I know the person that he is, and not bad to have people like Roy Williams in your corner, Coach. There's no question about that.
Been pretty lucky there, no doubt about it.
So, who's the best player that you played with, and the toughest player you ever played against?
The best player I played with in college.
Yeah,
I think 13 of my college teammates played in the NBA. I think
really?
It's something like that. So to say that one guy's the best, man, that's really tough. I played with a lot of great players. I played with a number of lottery picks. Man, I tell you what, I played with Raymond, Felton, and Ty Lawson in different years. Raymond for 2 years and Ty Lawson for 1 year, who were, both lottery picks at point guard, and they were unbelievable at that position.
Right.
As good as anybody as I ever saw in college at that position. When Chris Paul was at Wake Forest, when Raymond was playing, we were playing at Carolina. And to watch those two guys go at it is something I'll never forget. And Chris may be as good as we've ever seen in the history of our game at point guard. But Raymond and Ty were both incredible. On the perimeter, I went to high school and was roommates with a guy named Rashad McCants in high school, who was an unbelievable player. There was also a lottery pick for the Minnesota Timberwolves in 2005, and I think led the ACC in scoring in 2003, 2004, and he may have been ACC Player of the Year, runner-up for ACC Player. He was an unbelievable scorer, as good of a scorer as I've ever seen on a basketball court. And then in the interior, Tyler Hansbrough, Sean May, Marvin Williams. The list kind of goes on. Man. So it's hard to say one guy, but if somebody put a gun to my head, and he is one of my greatest friends in the world, Tyler Hansbrough, as a college basketball player, has as good of a career and resume as anybody that ever played our game in college over 4 years. Whether you look at wins, championships, or numbers or whatever, but I can tell you, he wasn't the most gifted guy I played with, but his day-to-day approach and his competitive spirit, like we talked about earlier, is probably the best I've ever seen. And I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast because I don't want him to hear me say anything good about him. And if he listens, then I want everybody to know how much I kick his ass on the golf course. But he was an incredible player. And, I played with a lot of good ones, as I said, but he'd be the one if you asked me to pick one. Oh,
man, just a blue-collar guy you got to love. My vision of him is that nose busted wide open and just bleeding everywhere, man. That's just an unbelievable memory of Tyler Hansbrough.
He took all the attention away from me on senior night. That was my senior night. Rayshon Terry and I and Dewey Burke, we were the three seniors. And, that's like the very end of the game. Yeah. They were giving us the curtain call, bringing us out of the game as seniors. And, we were having our moment. And then Tyler gets busted by Gerald Henderson. And then nobody even knew it my senior night after that. It's always just been Tyler's night. But no, that was incredible, right? I mean, there's so many. And that like visual of him bleeding everywhere, looking for who hit him, right. That does, give you a really good sense of what Tyler was about when he was competing.
Coach, you mentioned on the golf course handling Tyler Hansbrough. Is that a hobby? And when you're getting away from basketball, coaching, recruiting, everything, is golf one of your things, or what are your things? Yeah,
I love golf. I love to compete, and I can't play basketball anymore. I'm worried I'll be in the hospital if I try to compete. And some people keep playing basketball forever, but I don't know how. I only can do it one way. Like I can't play basketball and not drive it or not be. I got issues competitively, so you got to have some self-awareness, and it's not safe for me to play basketball. Golf is the area that I can really compete now, so I've taken up golf. You don't get to play it all the time as a basketball coach, but when I get opportunities, I love to play and I love to compete against my buddies. So I do enjoy the golf course.
Well, you hit the ground running, Coach. I mean, you've already put together a heck of a staff. You've already recruited. You've got some unbelievable players have committed to be Bearcats, and it's been a fast and furious start for you, hasn't it?
Oh, it's been a whirlwind. It's been so exciting because there's so much energy to get this thing going. But it's been a whirlwind. I feel like I just got here a couple days ago. Days have run together. I don't even know how long I've been here now, but there's been so much to do, and there's still so much more work to do. So I can just tell you I'm excited, and I have so much more energy just to kind of get to action and get to work every day. I think we put together a staff that I'm really proud of, that I think is going to compete at the highest level. I think we put together a roster that can really compete and shock some people this year. And now it's just about kind of getting to work and building it every day.
Coach, you look like you're going into your senior year at UC rather than coaching the basketball team. Do you find that, though, a big advantage in ability, a person, your age, relating and communicating with people the age of those you're coaching at the collegiate level?
I think you mentioned this, I think, earlier. I mean, this is all about relationships and being able to connect with people. And basketball is a really intimate sport. Like I was telling Coach Fickle the other day, I don't know how he does this. I went and watched his practice. I was blown away. Like, he connects with his guys, and he has 100-some of them. I like, that's amazing to me. Where we have 15 guys in our locker room. As a head coach in college basketball, you have the ability, if you prioritize it and spend your time with these young people, to connect with every player on your roster. And so it's all about those relationships first. I'd like to think that being young, and I'm not that young anymore at 38, but when I was young, I'd probably like to think, hey, when I was a young coach at 28, 29, I'm a little different because I still know the music they listen to and the things they think are cool. But I tell you, some of the greatest coaches in our game that are in their 60s and 70s, like you mentioned Coach Williams a lot during this podcast, I've watched them be able to get down on young people's level and relate. I don't think it's an age thing. I think it's a mentality thing. And so I hope no matter how old I am, I have the ability to connect with the people that I'm coaching and vice versa.
Well, I can see why you've had such a great success, Coach. And if I were a parent and you were sitting in the kitchen talking to my wife and I about our son, I'd be duly impressed with what you are as a coach and as a person. I can understand why everybody at UC is very excited about the hire of Wes Miller, and nothing but the best to you, Coach, and appreciate you for carving the time that you carved for us today. I know it's a busy time for you, and it's, believe me, well appreciated that you take the time to talk to us and our listeners and viewers.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Dave. I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you for the kind words. We're going to just get our tails to work every day. I love the tagline in the trenches. We're just going to be in the trenches here, trying to get better every day. I want a bunch of guys with me that want to be in the trenches too. So that's pretty neat. We say that all the time.
I love it. Maybe we'll have to change our nose to belly button. The way you're going to play that man defense, we'll do nose to belly button deal.
There you go.
I'll tell you, man, Bob Knight, when I was playing basketball, high school basketball, I'd go to basketball camps, and Bob Knight, I'm pretty old, Coach. So Bob Knight was at West Point, and he had his captain of his basketball team was at this basketball camp with him, Krzyzewski. So I'm at this camp, and Bob Knight's giving a lecture on man-to-man defense, and he's got Krzyzewski out there, demonstrating. And I'll tell you what, Bob Knight kicked our butts now. I mean, but we loved him. We loved him. And he killed us. He killed us for about an hour and a half, 4 straight days, and all we could do was love the guy. That's a special talent right there.
He's one of the great ones. And so is Coach Krzyzewski, who's retiring. I know that's probably sacrilegious since I played at Carolina to say that, but it's the truth, and he deserves it. And I actually, one of my assistants, Mike Roberts, went to Indiana to play for Coach Knight. Coach Knight actually was that whole deal where he was let go was while Mike was in school there, but then he went down and was a graduate assistant for him at Texas Tech. So I get some unbelievable Coach Knight stories from Mike. And Mike was with me for 7 years at Greensboro before he left to go back to Indiana as an assistant the last 2 years. So I've gotten the Coach Knight stories, and what an unbelievable coach and person. And what's really interesting about people like Coach Knight and Coach Smith, is the way their former players talk about them, or the way that people played for them talk about them. All the stuff in TV and the media, that's one thing. But when you listen to the people that, they were actually interacting with on a day-to-day basis and how they talk and feel about them, that's pretty neat. That's the neatest thing to me.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, how he affected so many people's lives, players' lives, and, players I've heard talk about going back to see him well into their adult life, when they're husbands, fathers, successful doctors, lawyers, or whatever. And to hear Bob Knight talk about that and his players talk about it as well, that's when you did something right. That's when it's really unique and special.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of that, Coach. I can tell the players are going to love you, and they're going to be lined up to see you when they're done playing. They'll be back to see Coach Wes Miller. I know that.
Best days as a head coach when your former players come back and see you. No doubt about that. So.
Absolutely, sir. Thanks again. Have a great day. Have the best day you ever had.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dave. You too.